They say the cheapest humbling on earth is a blinking red word on a plastic screen. Declined, it said again, the card reader's tiny display pulsing like it had a personal grudge against Jackson Reed. He'd turned slowly the first time, then slower the second, as if speed might change the message. It didn't. Behind him, the self-checkout line in the Pine Ridge Supermart started doing that collective inhale humans do when they smell drama and discounts in the same aisle. "You serious right now?" A guy 2 people back muttered, not bothering to lower his voice. He wore a watch that looked like it could ping satellites and a sleeveless shirt that read "Sun S out. Guns out," even though it was raining. Dude's got a watch that probably costs more than my truck. But he can't pay for Cheerios. That got a chuckle from a woman in scrubs with a scrunchie the size of a donut. "Must be one of those influencers," she said, shaking her head. "Pretending to be broke for clout. It's giving. Performative." A teenager in a beanie indoors laughed, just loud enough. "Bro looks like a Wall Street vampire. What happened, my guy? No Wi-Fi for your crypto wallet today." The laughter wasn't cruel, but it wasn't kind either. It was the kind that stings, because it's confident it already knows your story. No curiosity required. Jackson stared at the register like maybe, just maybe, it would have mercy and change its mind. The machine blinked again, declined. It felt like being tapped on the forehead by fate. Tap, tap, tap. "You there, still you," I said. A small voice piped up from somewhere near his knees. "You can take my money, Mr. Gasps, snorts. A few chuckles that had a mean shine to them. "Oh Lord," someone said. "Now a kid's got a cover for Mr. Armani." Jackson turned, and the world moved differently for a second, as if someone had shifted the floor a degree. The child in front of him didn't reach his hip. 2 chunky braids framed a serious face. Her sneakers were scuffed from playground sprints. She held up a Ziploc bag full of coins and ragged bills like it was treasure. And maybe to her, it was. "I can't take that," he said softly, more rattled by the crowd than by the offer. "That's yours. You should keep it, Zoe," said a woman's voice from a few feet away, tired but steady. "But he needs it right now," the girl replied, without looking away from Jackson. "And my mom says if someone's standing alone, you stand next to them. That's what good people do." The line went quiet, in a way you can feel in your bones. Then the teenager in the beanie tried to revive the moment. "Bet this guy's got 5 Lambos, and not one working debit card." Zoe turned, small, fearless. "You shouldn't laugh at people when they're down," she told him. "That's not brave." A few chuckles died an awkward death. At Register 8, the cashier, young, with fading tattoos that told stories she hadn't finished living, yet shifted her weight. "Do you want me to cancel the order, sir?" she asked Jackson, voice wobbling between policy and pity. He exhaled. Pride chipped, shoulders dropped. The old Jackson would have flashed an ID, maybe dropped a name that opened doors and closed mouths. He could have reclaimed the room with a smile he'd used at tech conferences to convince sharks they were dolphins. But something about the girl's bag of coins held him like an anchor tied to the softest chain. "What's your name?" he asked her. "Zoe." "Well, Zoe," he said, crouching so he was eye level with the person who'd come to rescue him with nickels and moral clarity. "That's the kindest thing anyone's done for me in a very long time." From behind them, someone called, "Zoe, where'd you run off to?" The voice arrived in blue scrubs and sensible shoes. The woman's eyes took in the scene in one sweep. The blinking red declined. The child's outstretched hand, the man in a clean denim jacket who looked like he could buy the store but somehow couldn't buy cereal. "I hope she's not causing trouble," the woman said. "No trouble at all. Jackson said. She just saved me from a whole lot of shame. The woman Carmen, her name tag said, studied him, then looked at her daughter. What did you do, honey? I gave him my emergency money, Zoe said matter-of-factly. His card didn't work, and nobody helped, so I did. That sounds like Zoe, Carmen said dryly. She turned back to Jackson. You okay, sir? I am now. He looked at the conveyor belt, at the cereal, the milk, the bread, the embarrassment cooling into something else. Would it be okay if I thanked you both properly? He asked. Maybe buy you lunch. Carmen hesitated. There was caution in her eyes, big city caution, single mom caution, Pine Ridge caution. We don't usually know pressure, he said quickly. He stopped. How do you explain that the last time someone did something for you without an angle? It was your mother, and you missed her funeral because you were closing a deal in Singapore. I haven't been helped like that in a long time, he said, settling for the small truth inside the bigger one. Carmen's face softened by a shade. There's a place down the street, she said. Ruby's Diner. Good food, not fancy. I'll meet you there, he said. He paid cash for the groceries after the second card failed too, because this was a comedy, and the universe likes a callback. He walked out into a drizzling North Carolina afternoon and the narrow streets of Pine Ridge. Population 6,200 and a town motto painted in hand-lettered white on the brick. Train depot. Proud of the Pines, stronger together. His truck was a dusty '09 Chevy that coughed like a smoker and loved him anyway. He didn't turn the key right away. He sat listening to rain tap the windshield, thinking of Zoe, of the kids' courage, like a bright thread in a gray room. The diner smelled like bacon fat and ambition. Vinyl booths with duct-taped seams, a pie case full of circles of sugar, and a bell above the door that announced every arrival like royalty. Zoe waved him over to a booth that had seen some things. We got root beer, she said, solemn. That's the good stuff. Then I'm blessed, Jackson said, and meant it. Carmen watched him over the menu. You're not from around here, no ma'am. You visiting, something like that. He didn't say. I built things, and sold things, and let other people tell me who I was, until my life felt like a staged photo. He didn't say. I was called a ghost billionaire because I disappeared and nobody could decide whether I was hiding, healing, or calculating how to make a comeback. He didn't say. I haven't slept in a week, because my name started trending again, for the one thing I didn't do save myself. Mom says mysterious is a red flag, Zoe informed him, sipping foam off her root beer. Your mom is probably right, he said, smiling into a paper straw. They ate grilled cheese and tomato soup. Zoe told him her second-grade spelling list included serendipity, because she liked to bite off words bigger than her mouth. When she asked him to spell it, he did, and her eyes widened like he'd pulled a rabbit out of a hat. Okay, Carmen said after Zoe wandered off to feed quarters into the claw machine. Real talk, you all right? He nodded. I lost a card today. He paused. I've lost worse. Carmen studied him. She wasn't unkind, but she was nobody's fool. If you're in trouble, Pine Ridge can be the wrong place and the right place. Depends what kind. Not that kind, he said, grateful. Just the human kind. They didn't say goodbye so much as drift apart, promising to be neighbors in a town where everyone technically is. Jackson stepped back into the rain, the sky rinsing the morning into something more honest. By sunrise the next day, his phone burned like a skillet. He didn't even know the clip existed until a teenager at Ruby S. said too loud for a whisper, too quiet for courage. Yo, isn't that the guy? The video, grainy, shaky, The kind someone shoots when they're pretending not to. The caption: when your billions don't work at checkout, hashtag billionaire blues, hashtag weird flex, no funds. The edit: circus music, Monopoly money raining. A freeze frame of Zoe handing him the Ziploc bag paused on his face the second. Vulnerability cracked through the polite smile. 10 seconds, 10 million assumptions. The internet's favorite snack. He closed his browser. He paid cash. He left a tip that made the waitress say "sir" twice. Outside, a wet heat clung to the street like a clingy friend. Someone at the gas station cupped his hands and shouted across the two lane. "Card working today." Jackson gave a polite salute. "We'll see. You might want to check your GoFundMe." The man laughed. "I hear the internet's got jokes." He was a grown man. He'd been roasted in boardrooms and on business channels, memed by teenagers, sued by a partner who smiled on magazine covers. But somehow, this being the punchline in a town where the punchline stood 5 feet away, hurt different. "Hey jocks." A small voice called. He turned. Zoe. Powder blue backpack, bouncing. An oversized library book, swinging from her arm, like she was about to whack a dragon. Carmen trailed her, face unreadable. "You left your sunglasses," Zoe said, proud of the rescue. "Now you won't squint at people and make them think you're mad." "Thank you," he said, accepting them like a medal. "You saved my eyesight." "I saw your face on my mom's phone," she added, bright as a bell. "You're famous now." Carmen winced. Jackson knelt. "Sometimes, being famous just means more people laugh when you fall." Zoe wrinkled her nose. "That's dumb. You didn't fall. You had a money hiccup." He laughed despite himself. "That's a way better headline." "People are going to talk," Carmen said quietly, eyes scanning two men across the street pointing their chins like fingers. "Pine Ridge is kind. Pine Ridge is also curious." "I've been publicly humiliated before," he said. "But it's usually less intimate." She tilted her head. "Welcome to the front row." He could have left. He could have been gone by lunch, a pickup truck and a trail of rainwater. Instead, he went to the hardware store. "I need a shovel," he told the cashier. 2 bags of mulch, a gallon of sunflower yellow and a gallon of fire engine red. "What are we painting?" the cashier asked. "A miracle," Jackson said. "Or, at minimum, a playground that doesn't eat children." Behind the Pine Ridge Community Center, the playground looked like a cautionary tale. 2 swings hung like missing teeth in a smile. The slide had mysteriously learned to exfoliate children. The seesaw didn't see or saw. It sulked. Jackson started with weeds. He worked until sweat made his shirt cling like regret. A few people walked past, slowing like maybe they'd recognize him better in person than on their phones. A 10-year-old boy with a cut on his eyebrow and bicycle grease on his calves stopped to lean on the fence. "You fixing that?" the boy asked. "I am. My sister broke her tooth on that slide last year." "Then we'll make it bulletproof," Jackson said. "Name's Eli," the boy said, and pedaled off, jangling away like a human bell. It felt good. The kind of good you don't hashtag. When his hands stopped shaking, when his breath settled, he taped a note to the community center door. "If you've got tools or time, bring them. If you've got nothing but heart, bring that too." He didn't sign it. He didn't need to. Pine Ridge had a way of hearing what wasn't said. That night, he knocked on Carmen's apartment door with a paper sack that smelled like a Southern grandmother's love language. "I brought dessert," he said when she answered. "Peach cobbler and a banana pudding that I'm 90% sure is legal." "You didn't have to." "I wanted to." Zoe popped into the doorway like a commercial break. "Tonight is for dessert," she announced. Tomorrow is for spelling. Spell onomatopoeia. Ma'am, Jackson said. I didn't sign up for hazing. Do it, Carmen said, deadpan. Let's see what those sunglasses are hiding. They ate cobbler so good, it made silence. They laughed about an old lady in Carmen's ward who swore pineapple rollers connected her to the Caribbean. They sat on the small balcony, with cups of tea that tasted like wet cardboard and comfort. Jackson reached into his pocket and took out a small envelope. I left this on your counter, he said. It's for Zoe's books, lunches, field trips. Please don't call it guilt. Good, Carmen said, not taking it. Because I don't want your guilt money. It's gratitude, he said. She held up a bag of coins. And taught me how to be a person in public. I won't forget that. Carmen studied him, the kind of long look that makes a man squirm if he's not telling the truth. Finally, she took the envelope. Don't try to fix us, she said. Just be honest. I can do that, he said, and realized honesty felt more terrifying than any board meeting he'd ever bulldozed. Zoe disappeared and came back with a small stone wrapped in tissue paper. I made this in art class, she said, suddenly shy. The stone was purple, painted with tiny gold stars and crooked white letters. Be the lifter. So you remember to help, even when you're sad. He swallowed hard. I'll carry it everywhere. By noon the next day, people had showed up at the playground, as if Pine Ridge had collectively decided to test the note on the door, and him along with it. A retired carpenter, with hands like baseball mitts. To high schoolers who painted murals on skateboards and swore they could do a wall. Eli again, now with a hammer borrowed from a dad who wouldn't miss it until dinner. They built, they sanded, they painted until the old structures shimmered with second chances. A local baker arrived with banana bread. The cashier from the supermart came awkward and earnest, like an apology with frosting. Jackson stood in front of the blank cinderblock wall on the community center and watched color arrive. The teens' brushes turned gray into sky, yellow into warmth, red into courage. Across the wall, in tall letters, they wrote, "Choose to lift." Beneath it, in the corner, a tiny purple stone with stars. It would have been the perfect day if a black sedan T appeared at the edge of the park like a punctuation mark made of money. The man who stepped out wore a suit that knew how to be expensive without bragging. Sunglasses, a smile you feel dodge you and hit the person behind you. "Mr. Reed," he said, and the voice came with a ghost. "Or do you go by Jackson now? I can't keep up with your rebrands." Jackson's stomach did a thing it hadn't done since the day Cole Whitaker handed him exit papers and a speech about fiduciary responsibility so polished it squeaked. "Cole," Jackson said, and there was nothing in the word because that was safer. "How did you find me?" "Please," Cole said lightly. "You were trending yesterday because a second grader tried to spot you at self-checkout. The internet drew me a map." Cole's smile sharpened. "We should talk. The door is open." "I closed that door," Jackson said. "And I locked it. And then I burned the key." Cole looked around, taking Pine Ridge in like inventory. "You're wasting yourself here," he said, still soft. "You changed industries. Now you're patching CISOs and handing out juice boxes." "I also ignored my mother's last voicemail, because I was closing a deal," Jackson said evenly. "I'm not interested in being that man again." Cole's jaw worked, then reset into the default charm. He slid a card into Jackson's jacket pocket anyway, like an uninvited thought. "You'll call," he said. "When you remember who you are." "I'm remembering," Jackson said. "It's just not the version you prefer." Cole left. The playground hummed back to life. Someone yelled, "Test the slide." and the crowd chanted like a high school pep rally. Jackson climbed the ladder, slid, and against his will whooped. He landed to applause he hadn't earned but needed. The next morning, the mural was defaced. A crude dollar sign. A spray-painted, fake savior, a cross choose to lift. The red dripped like a wound. It shouldn't have surprised him. But the cut of it, the intimacy of vandalism where children play, felt like an old betrayal wearing new shoes. "I heard," a voice said behind him, breathless. "I came as soon as I saw the photo." She was shorter than her byline, and taller than her video's Sienna Park. Independent journalist, a notebook tucked under her arm like it had opinions. Her eyes were sharp, but not in the way of someone trying to win an argument. More like someone trying to solve a puzzle without breaking the pieces. "You're everywhere," he said, tired. "I'm thorough," she said. "And your story is human. I like those better than the shiny kind." "No," he said. "You like the shiny ones, and then you make them human." "Fair," she said, and didn't flinch. "But this is small-town fear. People get weird when kindness threatens their cynicism." Carmen arrived with a coiled jaw. "Cowards," she said. Zoe stood beside her, eyes wide, then furious. "Who did that?" the girl demanded. "Someone who doesn't know the difference between a wall and a mirror," Jackson said. That afternoon, instead of painting over the wound himself, he hauled out ladders and invited Pine Ridge to fix Pine Ridge. They came. Teen artists, moms with toddlers, veterans with steady hands. The retired carpenter who had the patience of a clock. Eli painted a little sun in the corner and signed it E, because everything big starts small. They didn't just restore the mural, they grew it. Wildflowers laced the letters. Bird silhouettes stitched the sky. Handprints in every color crossed the bottom like a promise. Above the original words, they added in white, "Truth outlives noise." Sienna scribbled a note, then stopped, then scribbled again. "You should speak at town hall," she said. "Let people hear you, not the algorithm." "I've spent half my life saying the right things," he said. "Maybe what I do here can finally say them for me." She looked at him, notebook closed now, reporter gone, person present. "I'll write that down," she said softly, "and then maybe I won't print it." Word traveled the way it does in towns, with one high school and 9 churches on Wind and Whispers. By noon the next day, a crowd formed in front of the community center. Not a mob, not a parade. Something in between, full of crossed arms and crossed hopes. "I know what's out there," Jackson said, stepping up onto a milk crate because town halls happen where they happen. "I've seen the video accusing me of defacing the mural." "It's not me, looks like you," someone said, "walks like you. Why would someone frame you?" Another voice called, "You ain't that important." "Because I left a world that doesn't forgive," he said. "Because some people hate it when you stop playing their game. Because nothing terrifies liars like a community telling the truth." There was a murmur, the crowd thinking out loud. Carmen spoke next, voice steady as a metronome. "My daughter and I were with him that night," she said. "He was eating banana pudding with us and helping Zoe glue macaroni to cardboard for a diorama. He wasn't out painting walls." Sienna lifted her hand. "I looked at the metadata on the footage," she said. "It's been edited. The timestamp's wrong. The frame rate is altered. The light source doesn't match. Whoever posted it wanted it to be believed." A silence rolled over the parking lot. Mr. Wallace, the kind of man who could fix anything with a crescent wrench and a story, cleared his throat. "I don't get computers," he said. "But I know that kid." He nodded at Zoe. "She doesn't follow liars." "I also like snacks," Zoe announced, and the crowd laughed, relief loud and grateful. The wind shifted. A few shoulders unclenched. You could see trust deciding to try again. The storm came that night, actual one, not a metaphor, and Pine Ridge proved itself in power outages and wet socks. The creek jumped its banks. A pine fell across Maple Street. The community center took on water, the kind that sneaks in under doors like a thief. Jackson was there with a shop vac and a line of sandbags. Carmen arrived in scrubs and sneakers, hair braided, tight for the night shift she'd left early to haul tarps. Eli showed up with a coil of rope and a grin. "Granddad says, y'all need a bilge rat," he announced, proud. By dawn, the rain softened to a steady drum. By noon, the sun returned like nothing had happened, as southern summers do. By evening, Pine Ridge was back to gossiping at Ruby's about how the storm tasted like the summer of '98. When the high school quarterback proposed at the Waffle House, and the waffle said yes. In the eye of the cleanup, the librarian from Pine Ridge Publica, woman named Dottie, who wore reading glasses on a beaded chain, arrived with a request. "The East Wing's been closed for years," she said. "Budgets and mold. But we've got a grant that requires community hours. You look like a man who owns work gloves." "Ma'am," Jackson said, "that's the kindest insult I've ever received." They opened windows swollen with old rain. They bleached walls and pulled out carpets that smelled like wet dog and regret. They turned a forgotten room into a place where kids could learn to be more dangerous than a rumor. Mayor Ruth Delgado, former high school English teacher with a smile that made you tell the truth, and knees that still remembered the pep squad, stopped in with a clipboard and a face full of proud. "We stand behind people who build," she said, her voice carrying. "Not people who tear down." Sienna watched from the doorway, camera off, pen still. "You're making it real," she said later, almost to herself. "Turns out, quarterly reports don't change hearts," Jackson said. "A library might." The dedication of the East Wing happened on a Saturday that smelled like cinnamon rolls and wet earth. Folding chairs, a homemade banner, lemonade in a cooler with a crack down the side. The sign above the doorway read, "The Lifter's Corner." It wasn't about him, which is how he could stand it. He spoke short, because speeches are desserts, not meals. He said thank you, and I was hungry, and a little girl fed me. He said this wasn't a monument to a man. It was a monument to a town that remembered how to help itself. He said, "Truth doesn't need a megaphone. It needs neighbors." Zoe hugged him so hard, his ribs agreed to behave. Carmen handed him a tissue without ceremony. Sienna didn't write a story that day. She took a photo, the kind you keep on your fridge, so you remember what you look like at your best. That night, under strings of lights in the new courtyard, Pine Ridge ate casseroles and cobbler, and soundtracked its own redemption with guitars. Someone's uncle told the same story about the moonshine stills out past Cedar Ridge he always told. But this time teenagers listened and laughed in the right places. Jackson stood by the mural, now guarded by an invisible wall of hands, willing to repaint it again and again. He reached into his pocket and squeezed the purple stone, warm from his skin. The suit in the black sedan would come back. Storms always do. The rumor machine would churn. It loves a meal. But for the first time in years, he felt rooted. And then, because the universe can't resist a sequel, the video dropped. Different angle, night vision green. A hooded figure with a spray can in a familiar silhouette. The caption, "The lifter lies. Watch him do the damage." It spread fast, quicker than the original humiliation. It always does. Outrage is a sport. Forgiveness, a discipline. Sienna texted a link and one word, FAKE. By noon, the community center parking lot was a town square and a courtroom. People came with accusations and apologies packed in the same mouth. Jackson climbed onto the milk crate again and found he wasn't alone. Carmen on one side, Sienna on the other. Zoe front and center, fierce as a teaspoon. "It's not him," Zoe announced to the adults like she was the adult. "He was helping me make a solar system out of macaroni. Saturn took forever. It's edited," Sienna said, lifting her phone. "Different shadow angles, tampered timecode. Also," she paused, looked around, and smiled a little. "I'm not going to explain frame rates to you. I'm simply going to ask, who do you trust more? Your neighbor or a stranger on a screen? Trust is heavy until someone lifts first." Mr. Wallace did. "I vote neighbor," he said. "I know where he parks his truck." Laughter, small and cracked and brave, broke the tension. Mayor Delgado stepped up. "Pine Ridge doesn't outsource truth," she said. "We'll write our own story." Cole showed up again, of course, because storms like to check on you when the roof's patched. He didn't preach this time. He offered a mercy that sounded like a trap. "We can help you clear your name," he said, voice low. "Come back, Jackson. Reclaim the narrative. This," he gestured at the mural, "the library, the people. This won't last." Jackson pulled the business card from his pocket, where he'd kept it like a splinter. He held it over the flame of a citronella candle, next to the lemonade. The edges curled. Fire licked. He dropped it into a metal bucket and watched it die. "Some stories don't need me at the center," he said quietly. "They need me in the crowd, clapping." Cole's smile went nowhere for the first time. "You'll regret this," he said. "I already regret who I was," Jackson replied. "I like who I'm becoming." Cole left. A raccoon immediately took his place by climbing onto the picnic table and stealing the last piece of peach cobbler while the entire town screamed, laughed, and filmed on their phones. The raccoon, unfazed, stared into their lenses like a king on a mediocre throne. Sienna's camera caught it. She posted a caption that read, "The only thief in this town tonight," and Pine Ridge shared it until the algorithm admitted it liked joy. Days became weeks. The playground held. The library filled. The mural gathered fingerprints and backstories. Jackson slept. He woke with purpose that wasn't borrowed. He talked less about what he used to be and more about what he could repair today. A fence at Mrs. Calhoun's that kept pretending not to be a fence. A leaky roof over the VFW hall, a busted fryer at the high school cafeteria he somehow figured out with YouTube and cussing. He lost count of the times he reached into his pocket to touch the stone and felt it steady him like a hand on the back. He stopped checking if his name was trending because it was trending here, where it mattered, and the trend was neighbor. When the Pine Ridge Heritage Walk Committee formed because, once you fix a place, you start showing it. Offmeyer, Delgado asked him to say a few words on the courthouse steps beneath the clock that had kept secrets since 1891. "History is not a monument," he said. "It's a verb. It's what we do with what we remember." Pine Ridge runs on two fuels: stories and showing up. We've got plenty of both. He led a group past the old jail with iron bars that had held more hope than harm the last 30 years. Past the train depot with the hand-painted motto. Past Ruby's Diner, where the pie slices are cut like love generous until it hurts. The Georgia Racing Hall of Fame equivalent in Pine Ridge, the Piedmont Stock Car Museum hummed with simulators and nostalgia. Kids squealed in virtual victory laps, while old-timers nodded, remembering when victory laps smelled like gasoline and rebellion. That evening, under lanterns strung between pines, the town hosted its first helper harvest, a potluck for people who given hours to the playground, the library, the mural, and a list of errands nobody bothered to publish. Sienna didn't bring her camera. She brought deviled eggs and a quiet. Carmen laughed for the first time in front of strangers. Zoe fell asleep, mid-sentence, spaghetti on her face like a war stripe. Jackson watched the lanterns sway and realized home wasn't a place he owned or a title on a door. It was the way people said your name when they needed help, and how you showed up without checking your calendar. He looked at Carmen and Zoe and felt the weird, ordinary courage of belonging. And because life loves a callback, a woman he'd never met came up to him after clutching a flyer and a shy look. "I run the middle school lunch program," she said. "We lost our cook last month. The kids can't live on beige food. Any chance you could help?" he said. "Yeah, I'm getting good at that." She blinked. "You don't even know what I'm asking." "I don't need to. I know the vibe." She laughed and handed him the flyer. It was decorated with hand-drawn carrots and a clip art tomato that looked exhausted. The next week, Jackson stood in a hairnet he didn't earn, taking directions from a woman named Trina, who could feed 300 kids with $47 and a prayer. He learned to stir pudding without creating a chocolate hurricane. He learned to fix a busted freezer by jamming a pencil in a place a pencil should never go. He learned that 13-year-olds will tell you the truth whether you want it or not. And that truth sometimes arrives with no offense and a shrug. "You're the playground guy," a kid said, tray wobbling. "You were famous on TikTok." "I'm trying not to be," he said. "It's not working," the kid said. "But in a good way." He went home with pudding on his shirt and a heart so full, it did an extra beat. Time passed, the kind that matters and the kind you don't notice. The suit didn't win. The storms didn't stop. The town didn't fix everything. Rumors proved resilient weeds. Kindness proved better gardeners. On a morning that smelled like new-cut grass and coffee, Pine Ridge met in front of the library to dedicate the garden beds that volunteers had extended into a riot of marigolds and zinnias. Kids pressed leaves between wax paper. Old men argued about tomato steaks like they were discussing constitutional law. The banner above the door had been painted fresh, the white letters bright as teeth. "The Lifter's Corner. Are you happy?" Carmen asked him quietly, as if the question might startle. He reached into his pocket and held the stone, the paint cracked from use, the edges smooth from worry and work. "I thought I needed a comeback," he said. "Turns out I needed roots." Zoe tugged his sleeve. "Can I read to the toddlers today?" she asked, cradling 3 picture books like treasure. "There's no better helper," he said. "Go raise those babies, right?" She marched off with the solemnity of a surgeon. Jackson stood beneath the mural. "Truth outlives noise. Choose to lift." A purple stone, the size of a thumbprint, that had stopped him from falling, when he'd thought falling might be the only interesting thing left to do. He watched Pine Ridge moving in small Holy Ways lemonade stands and heritage walks, and a retired teacher teaching teenagers to write college essays at a fold-out table, and thought maybe this was the work he'd been looking for when he thought he needed an empire. He didn't need a brand anymore. He needed a bench and a to-do list with other people's names on it. The bench was there. The list kept writing itself. "They say, trouble Dosen, T-knock in Pine Ridge text messages, the group chat, and shows up with a casserole." It came on a Wednesday that started like sunlight through blinds. By noon, the sky was a lid. By 3, thunder was rolling in low and mean. By 5, the town went dark like somebody flipped the master switch. Not the sweet, cozy kind of darkness you fill with candles and hot chocolate. The kind that hums with who's got insulin in the fridge and granddad's oxygen. The power company sent a robocall that tried to sound confident and landed somewhere near Wishful. Mayor Delgado, who was built for emergencies and bake sales with equal force, set up a command post in the Pine Ridge Community Center. Then promptly moved it to the Lifters' Corner. When the community center flooded at its knees, the library had windows and a brand new breaker panel that Jackson had sweet-talked an electrician into installing. So it became the town's lighthouse. "You got generators?" she asked Jackson, already knowing the answer. "I got one," he said, "and I have a stupid plan for 3 more. He did what Pine Ridge did best. Made a list out loud. "Danny's Got Junk has a towable generator behind the shop. It runs, if you talk nice. Mrs. Calhoun's nephew has one for his food truck. The VFW has one they don't trust, which means it'll run forever. We need gas, extension cords, plug strips, and the collective will of humanity." Check, 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 and probably, Mayor Delgado said. Already texting. Sienna Park put her notebook away and shouldered boxes like a civilian. Carmen rerouted herself from the hospital with a cooler of meds, reminding anyone who would listen that room temperature insulin has a short career. Zoe, wearing a headlamp and the moral authority of a small general, organized children into a flash mob of usefulness. Crayons here, books here, chargers go on the right. If you're not sure what to do, ask Mr. Jocks or my mom. By dusk, the library glowed like a miracle. Cords snaked through the doors, labeled with blue painters' tape phones, meds, vent, whatever this is. Don't touch, IT hums. People from one end of town to the other trickled in, eyes equal parts spooked and relieved. Somebody started a pot of coffee on a camp stove outside, and someone else added hot dogs, and 10 minutes later it was a block party that smelled like resilience. "Okay," Jackson said, standing on a chair. "You've got a C in the main room, cots in the history wing, power on the tables. Books on every surface, and Miss Dottie reading Charlotte S. Webb at the top of the hour to anyone who needs their blood pressure lowered." "What about the freezer at the high school?" Trina asked, breathless. "The one full of chicken patties. We crack it once, and we cook everything we touch," Jackson said. "Somebody call the youth pastors. They multiply volunteers like loaves and fishes." They did. Kids showed up en masse, dragging coolers, cutting onions with tears that were mostly about onions. Learning that a town is a family you didn't pick and couldn't live without. Around midnight, the storm decided it had made its point. By 2 a.m., the worst of the adrenaline had burned off. Zoe fell asleep under the circulation desk, one hand on her purple stone pillow, because of course she'd made a pillow. Carmen leaned against a stack of donated quilts and finally closed her eyes. Mayor Delgado sat at a table with a legal pad and a jaw that said nothing would fall apart on her watch. Sienna watched the room through her camera without recording, like she was filming with memory. Jackson walked the aisles, checking cords and faces and the small necessary things, blankets tucked in, battery lights steady, coffee hot. He paused by the mural visible through the rain-wet window. Truth outlives noise. In the reflection on the glass, he saw himself standing smaller than the letters and felt precisely the right size. By morning, power sputtered back to life across most of Pine Ridge, appliances chirping like surprised birds. People clapped as if the grid had ears. The library crowd thinned, the way water drains from a basin when the stopper lifts. The staff paid volunteer, and I guess I work here now, cleaned up power strip, spaghetti, and gratitude. "You're coming with me to sleep," Carmen told Jackson, pointing at him with the voice of a nurse who has saved men tougher than him and buried men kinder. "Bossy," he said, not arguing. He crashed on Carmen's couch, woke to the smell of pancake mix and the sound of Zoe whispers singing a song she clearly made up. "We are the helpers, yes we are. We charge your phone and jump your car." He should have expected the sequel to the fake video, while he still had crust in his eyes. It never waited for you to be fully awake. Sienna's text lit his phone. Someone paid for that clip. Underneath, a link. Then a second text. "I can prove it, but I need to show you in person." He met her at Dolly's Book and Coffee, which was the kind of bookstore where the books had opinions and the coffee had advice. Sienna's laptop glowed with lines of data that looked like a constellation learned to code. "Whoever posted the vandalism clip," she said. "They used a farm of sock puppet accounts that spun up inside an hour, all pointing to a handful of burner domains. One of those domains was registered by an umbrella LLC I've seen before, Atlas Strategies." "Tell me Atlas is a gym chain," he said. "It's a boutique crisis PR firm," Sienna said. "The kind that launders narratives and bills by the hour. Usually hired by tech companies that ship first and apologize never." He exhaled, already tired. "Cole." "I can't say that," she said, jaw tight. "I can say Atlas worked a few contracts for Whitaker Venture Group. You can say we in a story where the villain doesn't twirl his mustache," Jackson said. "He invoices." Sienna closed the laptop. "We do this clean. We don't go online with innuendo. We build receipts. If we push too soon, we become the noise we're trying to outlive. Then we slow cook the truth," he said. "Pine Ridge style." They did what good reporters and stubborn towns do. They took their time. Sienna filed requests, made calls, chased whispers into names. Jackson found a teenager at the high school, Jason Hale, lanky and all elbows, who suddenly had a new BMX bike and a way of not looking adults in the eye. He didn't accuse him. He offered him lemonade. "You like bikes?" Jackson asked. Jason shrugged. "I like going fast." "Me too," Jackson said. "The trick is knowing when to stop." That line sat between them like a tool neither knew how to use. Jason's chin dropped. "A dude on the internet said he'd Venmo'd me $200 if I wore a hoodie and did a lap around the mural at night," he muttered. "Said it was for a prank edit. I didn't know it was for you. I didn't know it would blow up." "Do you still have the messages?" Sienna asked from a few steps away. "The way you talk to a spooked animal." Jason pulled out his phone with the helpless relief of someone who wanted to confess before he wanted to be forgiven. The handle in the DMs was at Atlas Fixes. The cash came from a burner account with a bio that read, "We untangle narratives." Jason handed over the phone like it was a knife he didn't want in his house. He looked at the mural. Shame all over his too young face. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I didn't think." "We don't pay for apologies," Jackson said gently. "We accept them and trade them for action. We need you to stand up in front of the town and tell the truth. If you do that, you can help paint my next mistake." Jason blinked. "You make mistakes." "I make them professionally," Jackson said. "I'm trying to go freelance." Mayor Delgado called a town meeting for the next night. The crowd filled the old gym by the elementary school. The floor had the scuff marks of 1,000 games and 2 weddings. Jason stood at center court, knees shaking under a courage he hadn't tested yet. Sienna stood near the back, phone set to record, not for the internet but for the files. Carmen stood with Zoe's hand in hers. Jason told the town he'd taken money to pretend. He said he hadn't known what pretending costs. He said he was sorry and he would fix what he could. He looked at the mural kids and the VFW guys and Miss Dottie and cried in the middle of the word sorry like the syllable weighed too much. A murmur went through the bleachers. The sound decent people make when something is hard and true. Mr. Wallace, who had somehow acquired a microphone, grunted. "We don't cancel kids," he said. "We draft 'em onto the cleanup crew." That got the loudest applause of the week. Sienna published the receipts in a piece that read like a slow, clean punch. The burner accounts, the Umbrella LLC, the Atlas contracts. She didn't print Cole's name. She didn't have to. People familiar with power could do math. People allergic to it didn't need extra details to choose a side. Atlas Strategies issued a statement that said many words without any new information. Sienna followed with a paragraph that will live in journalism classes. If you light a match and toss it into a crowded room, it matters little whether your business card is in the flames. Cole texted Jackson from an unknown number. "You overestimate heroes and underestimate crowds." Jackson didn't respond. He was busy organizing Pine Ridge's first Lift Fest, part fundraiser, part community therapy, part stubborn celebration. Trina demanded a row of food trucks. The youth pastors demanded a dunk tank and instantly nominated Mayor Delgado for the first seat. She volunteered before they finished the sentence. Miss Dottie demanded a pop-up bookstore table, and then wept when Dolly offered it for free. Zoe demanded glitter. The town acquiesced with the seriousness glitter requires. They put up posters like confetti hand-drawn, printed "Me-why." Sienna posted a teaser with the hashtags #ChooseToLift and #BeTheLifter. And by the next morning, high schoolers had remixed it into something so catchy even Jackson caught himself humming it while fixing an outlet. Liftfest landed on a Saturday that remembered how to be bright. The square outside the Lifters' Corner turned into a fairground. There were tacos and barbecue, and something a guy with a beard swore was deconstructed pimento cheese, and turned out to be signed in a cup. A bluegrass band set up under the pines and then covered Lizzo, for reasons nobody questioned. The dunk tank line wrapped around the block. Mayor Delgado took her seat like Joan of Arc with better shoes. "Last chance to change your mind," Jackson called to her. "Last chance to run for office," she shot back, waving at the town with both hands as teenagers took aim. She hit the water to a cheer that sounded like the best parts of small towns and the internet pretending to like things. Sienna streamed highlight skids with snow cones and old men two-stepping with their wives, and Zoe leading a little lifters parade with 20 toddlers and a raccoon puppet, because the actual raccoon had not RSVP'd. The stream trended not, break the internet trended, but the gentle virality that nudges good things toward more people who need them. In the middle of the afternoon, a goat broke loose from a petting zoo and trotted across the square with the composure of a county commissioner. It hopped onto the stage, glared at the bluegrass band, and bleated into the mic like it had comments about the set list. Sienna caught it perfectly on camera and added a caption. "Unpaid intern demands more hay." That Pine Ridge put on a shirt by nightfall. Cole showed up at dusk, because of course he did, stepping out of a car to sleek for a town where the nicest thing most people owned was a cast-iron skillet, inherited from a woman who never measured. He watched the crowd a long time. It might have been the first time he looked at something without trying to own it. "Back to build your brand?" Jackson asked, not unkindly. Cole shook his head, for once not arranging his face. "To apologize," he said. The word rasped like it had splinters. "I didn't pay for the vandalism, but I did hire Atlas to monitor the situation. They did what they do. I didn't ask enough questions so I could keep my hands clean. That's the same as dirty." Sienna hovered within earshot but didn't record. Carmen stood beside Zoe with the posture of someone who would go to war and bake muffins for the march. "You could say this in front of the town," Jackson said. Cole nodded. I could, he said. I should. He looked at the mural, at the kids drawing chalk hopscotch in front of it. I don't know if I can. You can, Zoe announced from below waist height, appearing like moral pop-up ads do. And then you can buy everybody funnel cake. Cole barked a laugh. How much funnel cake? All of it, Zoe said. At the mic, under string lights, and the goat glaring from a nearby picnic table, like a stage manager, Cole told Pine Ridge he had hired the wrong kind of help and accepted the wrong kind of silence. He said he was sorry, and he would pay for what he could and stay out of what wasn't his troubles. He didn't say if anyone was offended, which is a miracle that should be noted in the minutes. He wrote a check for the library wing, and the lunch program, and the Little Lifters Scholarship Fund somebody invented on the spot. He asked if there was anything else he could do. Yeah, Mr. Wallace said. Stay for the cleanup. Cole stayed. He stacked chairs. He folded tables with the awkward enthusiasm of a man new to humility. He tried to flirt with the goat, and the goat declined his LinkedIn request. The night ended with fireworks donated by a guy who swore he'd bought them legally. People lay on the grass behind the library and let the sky be loud on their behalf. Jackson lay on his back, purple stone warm in his palm. Carmen's shoulder against his. Zoe snoring softly like a tiny freight train. Happy? Carmen whispered, borrowing the question from earlier. I'm home, he said, stumbling onto the precise word. Sienna lay a few feet away, hands linked behind her head. The kind of quiet a reporter gets when the story and the person she cared about landed in the same place. This one's going to outlive us, she said to the sky. Good. Pine Ridge didn't become a utopia. The roof at the VFW still leaked every time it rained sideways. The school board had beef about the theater program. Somebody's cousin's cousin kept trying to sell dubious essential oils at church. The internet remained the internet, capable of saving lives and ruining afternoons in the same hour. But the mural didn't get tagged again. Or rather, when a visiting bachelor party from Atlanta tried their luck with a paint pen at 2 a.m., half the town happened to be there late, playing cards and eating leftover tacos. And the men learned you can be asked to repaint a wall and reconsider your choices and still be offered banana bread on the way out. That, more than anything, felt like Pine Ridge. Years, the kind that add up instead of disappear, found them. Liftfest became a calendar anchor. The Lifters' Corner grew like a well-kept secret tutoring after school, story hours on Saturdays, tax prep help in February. A hot cocoa station in December that made the whole place smell like nostalgia. Jackson learned to fix more things than he broke. He got good at saying, I don't know, but I can find someone who does. He and Carmen learned to have quiet arguments and loud laughs. They learned when to talk and when to put on a movie and let the edges of a hard day soften while Zoe narrated the plot like the director's commentary nobody asked for. Sienna moved into the apartment over Dolly's and turned down a network job twice. She said she wasn't finished telling small stories that fixed big ones. Jason Hale graduated, handed Jackson a note that said thank you for not making me a headline, and left for a community college welding program with a scholarship from the Little Lifters Fund he now helped run. Eli grew 5 inches, learned to change his own brake pads, and came back from summer camp with a girlfriend and a newfound belief in sunscreen. Cole surprised everyone by keeping his promises. He stopped trying to buy redemption and started renting humility by the hour. He moved his headquarters out of downtown Charlotte and opened a Pine Ridge satellite office that employed actual locals at non-predatory wages and spent corporate budgets on things like park benches and potholes. instead of brand videos with drone shots. He came to terms with the fact that goats do not like him. 10 years later, the sky over Pine Ridge at dawn looked like it had been painted by a kindergartner, with unlimited access to pastels. The courthouse clock had a new face paid for by a weirdly competitive bake sale. The train depot's hand-lettered motto had been repainted so many times, it had a second motto underneath: "Keep going." The mural was on its 4th iteration. Every few years, the kids voted, and the wall got a new chapter. "Truth outlives noise" remained. "Choose to lift" remained. The purple stone stayed, its edges softened by time and little hands. "Big day," Carmen said, stepping onto the porch of the lifter's corner with a tray of cinnamon rolls that could quiet wars. She wore a nurse's pin and a look Jackson loved. Equal parts tired and amused. 10 years, Jackson said, and the number felt both bigger and smaller than the life inside it. "You gonna cry?" Zoe asked, appearing with a stack of flyers and a confidence the world had learned to stop underestimating. She was not little anymore, except in the way mothers always see. "Probably," he said. "Good," she said. "People trust you more when your face does real things." Mayor Delgado, grayer and still terrifying, tapped the mic at the podium they'd dragged out of storage for the ceremony. "We dedicate this day to the verbs that built Pine Ridge," she said. "To lifting, to showing up, to changing our minds when somebody tells the truth." Sienna took photos for no one and everyone. She'd won awards on stories she never told loudly enough to become a brand. In the biggest frame on her office wall hung a picture of LiftFest 1. A goat at a microphone, and a kid with a snow cone, and a man on a milk crate whose heart was breaking open in the best possible way. Cole stood in the crowd near the back, hands in pockets, face quiet. He looked like a man who had been forgiven just enough to keep going and not enough to forget why it mattered. Mr. Wallace sat on a folding chair in the front row, hands on his cane, muttering commentary like a sportscaster. Miss Dottie wore a sash that read Story Queen and refused to explain it. Jackson stepped up when they called him because sometimes you have to be the face even when you'd rather be the hands. He looked at the town kids in shirts that said Little Lifter and old men in hats that said Navy and daughters braiding mother's hair and food truck guys in branded aprons that made them look like superheroes who grill. 10 years ago, a machine said declined. He said, voice steady. A little girl said, "You can take my money," and this town said, "We take your heart if you take ours right back." I thought I needed to recover a name. Turns out I needed to learn a new one. He paused. The silence felt like a held breath and a hug. We kept the lights on when the grid forgot us. We argued without leaving. We built a place where a rumor could come to die and a kid could come to read. We are not perfect. But we do not cancel kids. We draft them. We do not outsource truth. We grow it. We do not wait for permission to be kind. Zoe, on the edge of the stage, rolled her wrist in a land the plane gesture that made the front row laugh. Jackson smiled. "I'm almost done. But I need to say this. If you ever forget what to do next, lift something. A box. A voice. A burden. A name. It's the only trick I know that works every time." Applause rose like a tide. Not wild, not staged. The kind that soaks, then carries. After the ceremony, people wandered into the library, the way they always had. The new display by the entrance caught every eye. A little glass case with a purple stone, paint chipped, edges smooth. Next to it, a note in a child's hand, saved and sun-faded. "Be the lifter. Should have put it in a vault," someone joked. "It is in one," Miss Dottie said, adjusting her sash. "Ours." That evening, at the 10th Lift Fest, the goat showed up like a tradition. It chewed thoughtfully on a festival map and refused to weigh in on the band's second set. Sienna's camera stayed at her side. She danced instead. Cole worked trash detail with Mr. Wallace and did not complain when assigned to sticky lemonade duty. Zoe accepted to a college, 2 hours away, gave a speech about leaving and staying at the same time. Then raised money for the middle school lunch program by auctioning off a goat photo op, which sold for an amount that made Jackson text Trina 3 question marks and a heart. When fireworks flared, Jackson stood in his usual spot beneath the mural. Carmen slid her hand into his. "Happy?" she asked. "For the 100th time in 10 years. Rooted," he said, "for the first." Across the square, a new kid stood on a milk crate and read a poem he'd written about the storm the year the lights went out. It wasn't very good. It was perfect. People clapped like he'd invented weather. Sienna wiped her eyes, for reasons she would not explain, and Miss Dottie declared the rhyme scheme adventurous, which in her language meant brave. Jackson reached into his pocket, touched the outline of nothing. The purple stone was in the case now, where it belonged to more than one person. He felt for it anyway, and found it in the muscle memory of his hand. Some things you carry long after you let them go. He thought of the first, declined. He thought of the racket that followed, humiliations that sharpened him, kindness that caught him, a town that outvoted a lie. He thought of the verbs carved under the skin of Pine Ridge: lift, mend, show up, tell the truth, forgive, stay. The sky cracked with color. The town looked up. And somewhere between the blare and the hush, between laughter and a goat with no respect for boundaries, Jackson Reed understood what he had built without a blueprint. Not an empire that swallows, but a table that expands when you add a chair. A place where truth outlives noise because it has better company. He squeezed Carmen's hand. "Okay," he said, grinning into the bright. "What's on the list tomorrow?" "Fix the squeaky swing," she said. "And teach Zoe how to parallel park without praying." "Ambitious," he said. "Rooted," she corrected. He nodded. "Rooted."